This is the Middle-earth philosopher. I watched the Hobbit trilogy for Thanksgiving and made an interesting observation that how much similar Mirkwood forest is to the ancient cursed forest of Beleriand in the First Age, Nan Dungortheb, and, surprisingly, the girdle of Melian that guarded the forests of Doriath during that same era. Mirkwood is described as once being full of life and song, with trade roads that ran through it and over its long river that ran through it as well, but over recent years had become overgrown, entangled, and an abode to giant spiders and other nasty creatures as well, and that anyone who dared venture in there would become lost if they wandered from the main road, enchanted as it were, most likely becoming prey or just forever lost in that forest. The river itself now becoming so cursed, as it were, that anyone who fell into it by accident or on purpose fell into a deep sleep and also acquired an amnesia over any recent events that brought them there in the first place. It is said that it was thought that the source of this infection was from the ancient elven, now enemy-occupied fortress of Dol Guldur. Bilbo and the company of dwarves of Erebor just barely made it out alive, and even then, it may have been only due to their capture by the Mirkwood elves. Nan Dungortheb is similar to that, in that it too was an infected enchanted forest, but even more so. Between the spawn of Ungoliant and other creatures that plagued it, the unseen but maddening power of Sauron that infected it from his retreat from Minas Tirith, no, not that Minas Tirith, and the collision of that supernatural influence with those of the supernatural influence of the girdle of Melian, itself also an enchanted and unseen barrier for the forest of Doriath that bordered Nan Dungortheb. Like Mirkwood, few were the people who dared to attempt to go through that place, with the Silmarillion saying even that armies of Morgoth tried to avoid it as much as possible, which essentially establishes that the evil influence in Nan Dungortheb had no allegiance to anyone, neither the elves, men, or Morgoth for that matter. Aradhel, the rebellious sister of Turgon, tried to make her way through that forest with her escort, but fell victim to its enchantments and the dangers of its predators, and though making it out alive, she was also separated from that party, who had presumed her dead. Haleth of the Halidin also led her people near the borders of that forest and the equally dreadful mountains of terror, and it was said that they too eventually made it, but not without hard loss. And then there's Beren, whom, following the fall of the last band of his guerrilla band in Dorthonion, also passed through Nan Dungortheb, and he too survived, but like the aforementioned characters, not without extreme trauma, it being so extreme and horrifying that when he came out of the forest, he came out half mad, and also probably looking the part as well. Even after being healed of his physical injuries from the forest, he never mentally recovered from that, even refusing to tell Luthien anything about it or how he survived. And you got to imagine that if you're familiar with the tale of Beren and Luthien, if he couldn't tell her as much as he loved her and as powerful as she was, one wonders what the hell happened to him in Nan Dungortheb. Either way though, it's easy to see the First Age forest as a precursor to Mirkwood, and if Sauron was indeed responsible for corrupting Mirkwood from the Greenwood as it was originally named, perhaps he was inspired by the ancient tales of Nan Dungortheb that he himself had passed through and cursed so very, very long ago. However, the other location on this list, the girdle of Melian, while sharing similarities, is also entirely different in nature. Doriath was in central Beleriand and full of the giant trees that were so commonplace throughout Middle-earth during the primeval ages of the First Age. Further enchanted by the power of its rulers, Thingol and Melian. Yet, after reaching a stalemate during the First War of Beleriand, and not having the strength to break it, Thingol had Melian create the mystical barrier that surrounded the entirety of Doriath, turning it into the most defensible, impregnable, and safest refuge during the Beleriand Wars. Like Mirkwood and Nan Dungortheb, it too was an enchanted forest, so that anyone who entered would become lost in what would seem to them an invisible maze of giant trees. Only those with the permission of the rulers, or who were moved by something or someone more powerful, could break it. Unlike its peers, however, the girdle was not cursed, nor was it made for evil purposes. Just look at the enchantment itself. They're not being hunted by predators or entangled wood that looks like they were damned somehow. They're just lost. And the purpose of that being was that so nothing evil could enter in there anyway. What madness that could occur happened at its northern border with, again, Nan Dungortheb, where the powers of light and dark clashed, and the effects of that conflict and confusion was able to drive a person mad from the conflict of polar opposites. The interesting thing about Tolkien's use of enchanted forests, I think, is that in real life, forests have always been a source of mystery and the unknown. Dark woods that could hide any number of dangers or treasures that travelers and armies would never see. This was especially true of how American colonialists saw the forests of the east coast of North America, and how that fear often translated into their own stories of dread, like Sleepy Hollow. But having said that, in regards to Middle-earth, it is interesting to me how Mirkwood was just the latest installment, of Enchanted Forest with a bad reputation. But let me know your thoughts below. This is the Miller Philosopher. Have a good day.